Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining this conversation with Deborah and Cedric within a brand new, newly produced exhibition here at Schwarzes Café. What you see is a new work, a new exhibition called Moment 2 that comes as a movie that runs for 9 hours through the whole day, and a site-specific installation that you planned for here, for Schwarzes Café, that creates this arena-like island interior within this space. And you also, before this exhibition, we kind of share a relationship with Schwarzes Café. I remember when we started the space here, Niels and I, some years ago, we always wanted to also keep this setting of a cafe and also have it as a place where not just exhibitions but concerts and screenings would happen. And also through Jan Forisek, who connected us, we already did quite some program together. I remember when you brought Elisha Crampton concert, or the movie on Pico through Inverno Muto. And through this, we knew you from your project space you were also running in Basel some years ago, 1.1. But then you moved to London, where you still are. First you worked as a curator, now you fully concentrate as artist. And yeah, we're really happy that now we can kind of somehow continue this relationship and bring it to this exhibition, yeah, really overtaking Schwarzes Café in a new way. So maybe with this I would hand over to Niels.
And I'm really happy to introduce Cedric Falk. It was a kind of a great coincidence that we could bring you here because you're a close friend of Deborah, and we are basically fans of Cedric's work that we followed first from Clearview in London to Nottingham to a brief year, I think, at Ballet de Tokyo last 2 years, and then now Cedric is in Bordeaux. So it was kind of a great way to kind of meet you again after spending time in Nottingham a few years ago. And I think Freddie already mentioned, but the space, the exhibition is in this Schwarzes Café is kind of a sculpture by Heimot Sobernik, and somehow we felt it really makes sense with this show because it's not only the film itself, but as Deborah's work really comes from sculpture as well to a degree, it kind of recalls the setting also with the stage, which is really part of the show. And I think today also you have the chance to see another exhibition by Deborah at Sentiment, which is open today with 3 paintings that I really think are fantastic to see after this talk and in relation to the movie here. So I'm really happy that the talk will start at this point.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you again. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. We're gonna be speaking for about 30 to 45 minutes. The video that is part of the exhibition is gonna be playing, but without the sound. We have some slides and images to show as we speak, as we exchange. The idea is to really go and dig into like the origin of the work, the problems that were at the origin of the work, and the genealogy of its making, I guess, and make the bridge as well at the end with the exhibition at Sentiment. And I guess we could start. I could start by saying that what brings us together is like a common work that we are doing in different ways. Although, as they were mentioning before, you also operate as a curator, so it's also something that you did in your work as a curator. But here we're going to focus on how you complexify representation, specifically when it comes to black bodies, black queer people in your work, and that's indeed something that I've also tried to challenge. And this work specifically is anchored in the experience of a film called Portrait of Jason by Charlie Clark. Maybe we can start with that as a
Sure.
beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we show the excerpt?
Let's show the excerpt and
Yeah.
then talk about it. Maybe
Cool.
that's a good way to start. Yeah.
Maybe being a houseboy isn't a drag too much. But doing all these things in the back of my mind, I've been telling people so long that I'm going on the stage. Till it's gotten to be such a joke. Some people say, "What stage?" A stage of confusion. A piano player friend of mine says, "Where you going? You're crazier." But I've been told, and I do believe it, that I have a lot of talent. But it's nice in the kitchen, and it's nice in the bedroom, and it's nice in the living room, And it's nice at the end of the day to walk away with a few coins that you have had fun earning. As I say, my motto is, find out what you need to get through a day, make some provisions for getting it, and don't bug anybody, and you can go a long ways that way. But I am working on the Night Club Act, seriously. I'm working with a very fine piano player, very talented guy. And after all these years of living, like a piano player friend of mine told me years ago, he says, when you sing a song or you do a bit, it has to be about something. You have to do it from experience. He said, if you haven't had any experiences, to get out and get some. Well, if I'd have been a ranch, they'd have named me the Bar None. Because I've been getting experience coming and going. Now, I broke it down to the nightclub bit where there's three things, like I've heard all the years you're supposed to be saying something. What's this one saying? What's that one saying? Well, some of the female chicks, I know all they're saying is, look what you could get if you was lucky. Some cats are saying, look how strong I am. Some of them are saying, look how cute I am. Well, a friend of mine told me the fact that you're up there on the stage, you don't have to get cute, because that makes you cute already. And he also says, give me some money, and then you can watch me act funny. So the three things I want to tell is like, I want to start off like a real swinging hip cat that's been around. And I'm just going to let my modesty blaze, turban, tux, umbrella, the whole bit. Dance, sing, go crazy. And then from that, I'm going to go for a few minutes into a bitchy bag, like the maid that I've been that sees herself on the stage, or the houseboy, or what have you, and then I thought I'd end up as a clown, and all clowns are happy and sad. So I figured if you can sell sex, comedy, and a little tragedy, people love to see you suffer. You believe me, I've suffered. Oh, I've suffered extensively. And in my suffering, like, it's always a torch song, I guess. And in my nightclub act, after I get through being this hip little wild fly-out chic, I become this, just this girl who wants to be herself,
Can you tell us first, like maybe, when did you encounter the film?
Yeah, I actually encountered first Tabia Nyong'o's writing about the film in the book that is also mentioned in the press, in the exhibition text, by you. And from that text, in the text, Tabia writes about notions of refusal, fabulation as well, and uses this film as an example to dig into formal refusal or formal spaces within archival work that allow for refusal, that can be read as refusal in different approaches of dealing with archival material, where we know that the context of it is often problematic. And then through that text, obviously, I was interested in seeing the film. And a lot of that work was actually in 2019, end of 2019. when I was in residency at Gasworks. So I
Okay.
was doing a lot of research into different formulations of refusal and fabulation, basically. Yeah, and then it just never really left
you.
my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The film being by a director called Shirley Clarke. It was produced in 1960,
67.
67.
Yeah.
Released in 67, but
Yeah.
produced in 66. And it's a film that was praised as a kind of manifestation of cinema verité,
Yeah.
shot throughout 12 hours, if I'm not mistaken, across one evening in December in a flat, in a hotel room, specifically in New York, Chelsea Hotel. And as the work was praised for some time, but at some point, I guess there was like some new perspectives were cast on the film from, I guess, well, Tavian Nyong'o being one of them, but before him, critics started to go back to the power relationship in the film.
Yeah.
And how Jason was exploited, his image was exploited, his voice was as well. And that's maybe where the whole project Moment 1 and Moment 2 came about.
The sequels.
We're going to talk about this, yeah. So it comes from a place of, like, I guess, an uneasiness and a desire to, as that those are your words, which I think are really powerful, to be in solidarity with Jason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you develop a little bit this aspect?
Yeah, maybe just to add also, Shirley Clarke is a white filmmaker. She started as a performer and as a dancer, and then she received this camera on her birthday, and that's how she started to make films. And Jason is a domestic worker, sex worker, who really wants to be a comedian and have his nightclub act, which is what he was speaking about in this excerpt as well. So Shirley decides to make this film, make a portrait of him, and I think in that time he was hanging out with all the, as he would say, probably cool cats of New York, like Miles Davis and Dinah Washington and so on and so on. And I think also I read somewhere that also Andy Warhol was really desperate to make a film with him, and that never worked out. So it was already like this dynamic of I don't know, capture, I would say, almost like who gets to catch Jason. And it kind of created the basis that for Jason this film was really the opportunity to finally do his nightclub act, which he's not able to do in the nightclubs. But now he has this film, so he like kind of goes into it believing that he's going to be a superstar and can finally do his bits. But then Shirley Clarke and her then boyfriend, the actor Carl Lee, they're off the stage, off behind the camera, and they're heard throughout the film kind of giving prompts. And they get more and more aggressive and more intrusive, from like questions about childhood to first tell us about this specific traumatic experience that you had, to then in the end confronting him and kind of accusing him that he's a liar, that he's just pretending, and he breaks down crying, and they go even further and so on. It's just like that was I think the point that interested me in this approach of filming over 12 hours, and it starts at 9 p.m. I think, or 8 p.m. Anyway in the evening, and then goes through the whole night. So also he gets more drunk. I guess also the people behind the scene get more drunk, and they smoke weed and so on and so on and so on. So it's really this process of kind of scratching away the surface of someone, and I think that's the approach that Shirley took with this film of trying to get deeper and deeper in, kind of peeling away the character that Jason wants to be and peeling into the core or something. And in that, I think there's something really troubling that speaks to maybe a wider dynamic of wanting to see like trauma, or like specifically black trauma, I think is something that is very made it in almost like a thing that is consumable, especially in images. I mean, I'm interested in how that works in images and video.
Well, he's saying it himself in the
Yeah.
suffering. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like there's like these two things that are interesting. The one part being what I just mentioned, this dynamic, and then the other part, how Jason is actually very aware of this dynamic, and he knows that he's kind of trapped in this, I don't know, like smaller than this stage area of this hotel suite where he's being filmed nonstop and asked all these questions. Like he kind of gives these hints. Like also in the stories he tells, like he chooses to tell stories. For example, when he's in therapy with a psychoanalyst, and he's speaking to that dynamic of like, I'm not giving you everything. Like I'm not gonna tell you everything. I still I don't know you, so I'm not gonna spill all the beans. So in that, I think there's like very strong aspects of how he approaches this refusal and like retaining the agency, despite being in this really violent situation.
And so here we have moment 2, which in some ways we could say it's at the same time like a repetition, a rehearsal, a sequel to Portrait of Jason, but it's also a repetition of a previous film,
sure.
which I think is a nice place to start to explain how you got to the different choices that you made for this exhibition and for the film. So yes, we have here the screening, a documentation of the screening at the ICA earlier this year of Moment 1. Was it called Moment or just Moment?
Just Moment.
Just Moment.
There was no Moment 2 in the plannings then yet.
So as you can see here, it was like a double 2-channel video within the same setting. It's a hotel room, if I'm not mistaken. And the length of the video here was...
It's 107 minutes, so that's the same time as the version of Portrait of Jason that was cut together. Like the version that was in the cinemas was also 107 minutes.
And you had two performers who are also artists.
Yeah, so I worked with Rebecca Bellantoni, who is also the performer in this film, who is an incredible artist and performer. And then on that side is Imani Mason-Jordan, who is equally amazing artist and curator and part of Languid Hands. They're both also friends of mine. And they both have like complicated relationships to performing for camera, I think, which was the main thing that I was interested in working with them. And especially Imani also has a practice of like spoken poetry and like spoken performances. And they performed very, very differently, which I felt was interesting in that first version, because it creates this space between the two performances and the two iterations, I think. Like Rebecca is very, I don't know if you've already seen a bit of this film with the sound on, maybe before or maybe later, or maybe tomorrow. But Rebecca is very, I mean, we did a lot of rehearsals as well, and with Rebecca it was really this negotiation of how much does she give and how much does she kind of hold back. And with her, I think it was because she has a practice of performing, and she kind of came to it and being like, look, I'm not going to give anything except what you tell me to give. And I really liked that, so we just rehearsed the words, basically. And with Imani, because they have such a different practice of performing, they're much more, how do you say this in English, like gesticulating, I don't know, like speaking with hands and...
really
and
more in the acting kind of...
and
spectrum.
And kind of taking the words as their own as well.
So when you say the words, just for everyone, for people who haven't maybe seen the work, there are words from the film, from the original film,
Yeah.
said by Jason. So the performers are channeling the Jason's voice, basically, but very specific,
Yeah.
very specific excerpts.
Yeah, so I was interested. I mean, it's excerpts from Portrait of Jason. I think maybe altogether worth of like, in the first one maybe 4 minutes, and then I changed some things around for this version. I keep pointing to the wrong screen, but for this version it's around maybe 7 minutes in total. And it's those moments. There were some in the video, in the excerpt that we showed as well, where either Jason makes statements. So throughout this whole duration, he kind of like, he wants to show himself. So he makes these statements of who he is, and it changes throughout this course of time, which for me speaks to the slipperiness of like not being able to be pinned down. It's things like, I mean, the excerpts start with, I'm a lazy cat, I'm a stone whore, I hustle, and I'm not ashamed of it. And then on the other hand, those moments where he's making clear that he's aware of this power dynamic. So people love to see you suffer. Yeah, those kind of excerpts. And they're basically repeated and repeated and repeated. Here 107 minutes long, and there 9 hours long.
I mean, there are several things that we're gonna talk about maybe when we focus specifically on moment 2. But obviously, like the big difference between moment and moment 2 is the length and the fact that obviously there is like it's like a one channel video. So can you tell us about the journey that led you to make those decisions of the 9 hours long video and the one screen for moment 2?
Yeah. So moment 2 obviously came after moment 1, where I had experimented with these two screens and this in between, and those moments where the speech comes together, where it falls apart, and where it's like against each other, or it becomes kind of a dialogue also with the pauses and stuff, which was really interesting. But then I was also more pulled towards like focusing on those words and giving them more space, because I think in the first version it becomes much more about this play between the two performers. And in this one, together with the length, we really have to sit and listen to this one performer and her speech, and just like hear these words over and over, and there's really no distraction. Yeah, and she kind of performs in the same way, which is like incredible for 9 hours. Yeah, I think that's the main things. Also with the length, I was working with the loop. Even moment 1, the first idea was to have it 4 minutes long, and then I extended it to 107, so I can play with the loops and the repetition. And then when I thought about it being shown here, and like thinking also about the opening times, it really didn't make sense for me to do 107 and then have that repeated again and again, because then the loop kind of doesn't work in the same way, or it's like, it might as well be 4 minutes or 9 hours. Yeah. I'm a Scorpio, I live in extremes. So for me it was important to not have the film looping, but to have the speech looping, and that loop being different all the time. I mean, I think we were also talking about this a bit when we were preparing. The repetition and loop is something that is interesting for me in terms of the excess that it creates in relation to music. I mean, my work is very non-musical maybe, but for me a lot of it comes from music. In relation to jazz also, I think also, I mean, with the original Portrait of Jason, there is a lot of like this excess energy or excess, I don't know how to really pin it down, or if it's necessary to pin it down to what exactly it is, but I think Tabia Nyong'o writes about it in terms of like crushed blacks and overexposed whites in film, so like the faulty areas. But then, and I guess jazz kind of works the same in that you don't necessarily play by the note, you play a note and then the next note has to save the note before, and that kind of creates tensions, but then also this thing of opacity or like surplus material that is there, which I was thinking about with the repetitions. Like if you say something a million times, it has a different ring to it, also different meaning, and maybe different connotations. I mean, it really depends how long you want to spend with the film.
I guess one of the things that you were also mentioning when we first discussed the work was you were surprised. I mean, you were not expecting for the audience to stay throughout the whole length of the first iteration of Moments.
Yeah.
And to make it 9 hours here led to, for Rebecca and the work to be, and Jason in Echoes, to kind of avoid any capture as well.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, I mean, formally and with the content, I mean, maybe I should have led with that, but what is interesting to me, or like what I set out to do, was to complicate this notion of representation, or like this representation that is pinned to capture, and maybe create more friction between those things. Like, I mean, clearly I'm still working with people, like bodies on camera, but the 9 hours allow for Rebecca to kind of leave the set. I mean, if you were here at 1, I think the room was empty, now she's back. Yeah. So every hour and a bit she leaves the room and takes a break. And we have to sit with that in real time as well. And yeah, and it's kind of, I mean, you have to be very committed to see the 9 hours. I think I did it like, I can count it on one hand.
Well,
how many times I did.
Even when I had a look actually at the opening times of where we are, 9 hours is only possible on Thursdays.
Yeah. So keep your Thursdays free. Pack your lunch.
But I guess it's quite interesting when we focus on this complexification of representation as like a focal point for the work, in the fact that the camera is still as well. The performer here, Rebecca, doesn't look at the camera in comparison to the portrait of Jason. So how were those decisions made as well? When did you decide, okay, the camera is going to stay as it is, no movement?
It kind of went hand in hand with, I think, how we treated the set, in wanting to create kind of a stage. I mean, I was kind of digging into what makes Portrait of Jason so difficult to watch for me, and it's part of it is that the camera is literally on his face the whole time. Sometimes it zooms out, but zooms in. It's always following. Like there's no way of kind of escaping, which gives a lot of power to the camera and creates this thing of digging deeper and wanting to catch every like twink of the eye and stuff. And so for me, it was finding ways to reverse that and giving the power to the performer, and kind of being able to escape the camera, to, you know, the camera kind of being like almost without clear agency. Like it's there to capture the thing, but it's not there to capture the performer. And then also thinking with this staging around performance itself, like if we take away the element that it's a film, but also the performance itself, having the stage and the off stage, and I think that's what I wanted to mirror with the installation as well, to have this stage element that is hinting towards maybe like this very long performance. But yeah, and also like the staggering of the space, to have like the length of the room. Yeah. That's
actually like, how did you choose this specific room? Why?
I looked at a lot of hotels. A lot of them are very ugly. And this one, I mean, I think it's interesting in relation also to where Portrait of Jason was shot. It was shot at the, as you mentioned, at Chelsea Hotel, which I understand at that time was like the place where people would stay, like live. Shirley Clark, I think, was living there. And it's a hotel that overlooks Central Park. So I was looking at hotels in London that overlook Hyde Park,
Okay.
essentially.
Okay.
And this was one of the nicer ones, or more like visually it worked for me. I think I was also looking at, you know, some hotels are like, or a lot of hotels in that area are very, I don't know what the word, like just ugly. Just like there's so much extra material. There's like 3 curtains and 50 like different tapestry and stuff like this. So it really doesn't work in the contemporary sense either for me. And I think with this also, I mean, we brought a lot of props in. A lot of what you see is from my room, to kind of make this barrier also of it could be a domestic space maybe, but then it's also too clean to be one. And this promise of intimacy, but then like it's not intimate. It's a hotel room.
And that's actually where as well, I guess, the bridge with the paintings at Sentiment can be
Yeah.
made.
Then they leave towards the end. There we go.
So Deborah is taking over Zurich at the moment, so there are 2 exhibitions. So this exhibition has opened like 1 week before.
I'm tired.
And she's still here. It's 3 paintings, as you were mentioning earlier, Freddy, and there are unfinished paintings of interiors.
Yeah.
Maybe you can, yeah.
So, I mean, for the set design of moment 1 and 2, as you see, it's the same basically. The only thing that's changed is the flowers, because seasons change. But yeah, for the films, I was doing the set design together with a friend of mine, and it led me to thinking a lot about how the set becomes an extension of the character and how it essentially becomes like it's another element or another tool to build the character, right? In fictional film. So with the paintings, I'm also looking at existing film. I'm looking specifically at black lesbian films, and working with absence. Like, so I watched these films and was looking out for the moments where the characters would leave the space, like leave their homes, their domestic space, like their space. And of those moments, I took screenshots, and of those screenshots, I made paintings that are left unfinished, to also like work along with the how constructed it is and how layered, like how the process is like it's a process of construction, of building something, building a character. And within that, interested again in like this thing of representation. I think maybe to kind of circle back to that. It's interesting to me, or like I want to work with. I keep saying interested. I'm annoying myself. The notion of representation, I think, is complicated within like a wider context, where like of social media as well, and different areas of life and culture and politics and yada yada yada. Within this kind of project of diversity, that representation almost becomes an excuse for doing it on a like surface level, and only optics matter. And so wanting to like not engage with that is part of the reason why I decided not to, five portraits of black lesbians or something. But look at like how the characters are constructed through the interior design, and in all the, I mean, this one maybe is the most explicit with this painting over there, left, I think, where there's like a hint to who lives in the space, but also not so explicit, I think.
Well, I think that's gave most of the not I was gonna say clues, but it's not really clues. It's more like the foundations for the work. Maybe we have time for some questions from the audience, if there are any. No. Yes. I think we have a mic to pass on for the. Sorry.
Yeah, then we can actually see better.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm really curious about the work now. And I wanted to know more about your position as a director behind the camera, because you were pointing to this specific power relation in the original film, and I was curious how you kind of found a way for you. I mean, you already mentioned some of the strategies, but maybe there are more. How you tackled this power relation of the one behind the camera and the one in front of the camera.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing that I think keeps, like, it's not worked out fully, because there is always a power relation. For me, it was important also for that reason to work with performers that I already know, who are my friends, so we can, I mean, I hope that they would feel comfortable to tell me, like, fuck off, if I'm, like, overstepping or something. And then in this version, yeah, now you're gonna have to watch it for another, I think, almost hour till there's another break. But in the breaks, there's a few moments where I also become visible. Like the offstage kind of becomes visible during the breaks when Rebecca's out. So you can hear there were like between 3 and 5 people in the room, depending on the moments. That like we become audible and visible at some points as well. So that there's like this kind of this process of disarming the camera, or like the behind the camera. But then also I didn't want to like correct Shirley's work necessarily. I didn't want to this is how you can do it better kind of thing. Like I was more interested in like, okay, this exists, these problems exist, like how can I complicate this relationship. Yeah, and I think that's how I was trying to like navigate those, I don't know, difficult dynamics. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just curious if you could say something about the casting and gender.
Mm-hmm.
I think a black queer man in 1967 was basically someone being abused in many different places, not only in front of the camera. And how did you go about it and change it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't want to, again, I think it's like creating distance as well. I didn't want to make the same film but different. And then also thinking about now and thinking about me, like my role in this and my positionality, I wanted to work with black, whatever gender, complicated. Yeah, like not cis men, basically. And I mean, originally I was also thinking about, you know, as with the paintings, like black lesbian representation specifically. Then I kind of moved away from it because I really liked working with Rebecca. But I think that there's like from this distance, I think also Wu-Zhang, whose work I adore, speaks about this as well to some extent, of like speaking with somebody and speaking maybe from a slightly removed position, and that creating a sense of solidarity or like relation that then also like escapes this really direct pinning to identity on those markers, but like kind of broadens the thing up a bit, and yeah, I don't know if I'm making
Yeah. No,
sense,
to me, it's like somehow I guess there is like that distance or that gap that's created with the words that are enacted that somehow are when they are said by Jason hold another strength, I would say, and when Rebecca enacts them and channels them with that tone as well, you feel like it doesn't belong to them. It's like it feels like it's someone else's words, but quite powerfully in creating that gap that maybe could be parallel to those crushed blacks that Tavia Nyong'o is talking about in his writing. I feel so. It's like glitches that appear not visually on a film that is so polished and clean somehow, but they do exist in other ways. That's how I would say it.
Thank you for that elaboration.
But thank you. That's a question I didn't dare asking because I didn't even for several reasons. Any other question? Yes, over there. If we can pass on the mic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the talk. We were able to go and see those paintings yesterday.
Yay.
And we were very intrigued. And what is so nice looking at them, that there are parts that aren't finished, and you can follow a lot of lines, that are kind of sketches or, also laying things open or not done to an end. And I was very curious about those moments in the paintings. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go back to music for that one. I think the titles of the paintings are also all references to music. So like this one is for much longer duration than before. This one is half valve, sustained non-chordal pitch. And then this one is slow gliss down, long decay, ululate. So they all kind of come from either method, like half valving is when you play the trumpet and you don't press the valves fully down, and that creates it's a method to not trap the tone, so you can kind of like move through different tones easier, and without like, I'm not gonna sing. It kind of goes. A gliss down is kind of maybe makes a more like a clearer image in the mind for it. But again, like thinking about how to not be trapped and how to not be encapsulated fully, and like maintain a level of fluidity or like fugitivity. I think is a word that is used a lot in Black feminisms that I also gravitate to. And leaving, I think, like, the nice thing with painting that is very different than, for me, making film, is that it's really, like, at any moment you can decide to do something else, or you're really working with the material. And for me, I couldn't bring myself to paint more, to be honest. Like, I just felt like that they were completed at some point. To keep the openness and to keep the tension and not become complete. I don't know, like finished and full stop.
Thank you. We have to
wrap.
Okay. But thank you for this moment.
Thank you too. Thank you.
I feel like we really got to like get deep into like the complexities of this great work. So thank you again, Deborah. Thank you to the team here for the invitation and the logistics and everything technical. I think we are gonna play the work for a few minutes before the stage is like before we leave the stage for something else. I don't know what it is actually.
I think there's more talks this afternoon. So
more talks.
Either stay or go to Sentiment to the
But thank you everyone, and thank you for everyone watching online.
Thank you, Cedric. And thank you.